So, how do you become a vampire in Oblivion, and what are the advantages and disadvantages to living the Dracula life? Well, there are a number of different ways to becoming a vampire. Number one, you can basically just go and fight some vampires and get the vampiric disease. Now, there are a number of different places where vampires spawn, but one where you can guarantee to find vampires is the Barren Cave, which I'll show on the map right now. You just need to let the vampire melee attack you until you contract the disease. You'll see it come up on my screen now. This might take a while, so take some health potions with you so they don't actually kill you before they give you the disease. You can see in my example, I definitely would have died if I didn't have health potions because it took a lot of swings for me to actually get it. But this is a pretty easy method. The second option is to go through a bunch of Dark Brotherhood quests and eventually get a quest called Darkness Eternal. You can see this chap is the one that gives it to you, but you're going to have to actually do a bunch of quests before he's going to offer it. I believe the final one before you get Darkness Eternal is called My Brother's Keeper. So this is a bit of a more long-winded way to do it, but at least you don't have to get a vampire swinging an axe at you, I suppose. And you might just be doing the Dark Brotherhood stuff anyway. I'd definitely recommend doing it. It's a lot of fun, actually. Then the third way is you can get it just simply by sleeping outdoors at night. So if you went to a bedroll or a bandit camp and went to sleep for at least an hour at a time during the night, there is a chance that a vampire will bite you in your sleep and you'll get it that way. I actually tested this to try and get it for the video and it just didn't happen, and I wasted about 3 nights worth of going in and out of sleep, so I wouldn't really recommend trying to do it that way. The easiest way is probably just to go to the Barren Cave and get hit by a vampire. It doesn't take long at all. Once you've contracted the disease, you need to then wait 3 days and then sleep as well. It's very important that you sleep at the end of the 3 days, otherwise you won't turn into a vampire. It'll just wait till you next go to sleep. You'll then wake up and you will see that you now have vampirism, and if you look under your abilities, you'll see that you have various enhancements and some penalties for being a vampire. There are 4 different stages of vampirism. You're currently in stage 1 if you've just woken up, and every 24 hours you go without feeding, and then subsequently you need to sleep as well. You'll go up to the next stage of vampirism. It will be really obvious when it's happened because when you wake up after a day without feeding, you'll have had a dream. It'll be a little bit of text that comes up on the screen like this, and that means you've advanced the next stage of vampirism. So this is how you become a vampire, and this is how you progress in stages as a vampire. So what's actually the point of all of this? What are the benefits of being a vampire? Well, as a vampire, you get boost to certain stats. You get a 100% paralysis resist passive. You get some resistance to disease. You get resistance to normal weapon damage, and you get abilities for each stage. So at stage 1, you get Hunter's Sight, which gives you Night Eye, which is essentially see in the dark for 30 seconds, and it gives Detect Life within 100 feet for 30 seconds. Phase 2, you get Vampire Seduction, which is a charm ability that essentially charms someone for 20 seconds on touch. At stage 3, you get Reign of Terror, which is a silence that can be used at 20 foot, and it's for 60 seconds, which is significant. Then you have stage 4, which is Embrace of Shadows, which is really powerful. You get Night Eye, again, see in the dark essentially, for 90 seconds, and you get Invisibility for 180 seconds. It's a really, really powerful ability, especially for sneaking around. As well as getting a new ability at each stage, your passive abilities also go up at each stage, so you get a bit better on stats and resisting diseases and your resistance to normal weapon damage as well. Of course, there are penalties, as you'd expect, otherwise everyone would just be a vampire because you're just so much more powerful. If you get into the later stages of vampirism, people simply won't interact with you. Civilians will be scared of you, which obviously is very limiting in a game like Oblivion. You also have a weakness to fire damage, which will go up with the stages of vampirism, and by the end is actually quite crippling when you decide to go up against an enemy that does fire damage. And the really big one is the weakness to sunlight. So you take damage per second whilst you're out in the sun as a vampire. And if you get to stage 4, I believe you take 8 damage per second. So if you're out in the sun, especially at a low level, you're going to die really, really quickly at stage 4. It essentially limits you to doing your activities at night. That's the basics of it anyway. You can go and have a look on Google and see what the exact stats are for each level, etc. But I'm not going to bore you with it in this video. If you want to reverse vampirism, then there's one core way of doing that, and there's also one additional way if you have the Vile Lair DLC. The main way is to go to a guy called Raminus Paulus at the Arcane University. Make sure you feed first, because if you go at stage 4 vampirism, then he's not even going to speak to you. Just feed so you're back down to stage 1. Then you go and get a quest off him. This quest line gets you to prepare a potion that involves gathering garlic and stabbing some poor Argonian to get his blood. It takes a little bit of time, but yeah, it's fine. There is another way of doing it by using the Font of Renewal, but that's only possible if you have the Vile Lair DLC. Bear in mind that if you do go ahead and cure your vampirism, then the only way to get it again is through the Dark Brotherhood quest. Bear in mind, if you do decide to cure your vampirism, then there's only one way to get it back, and that's to do the Dark Brotherhood quest that I mentioned earlier. The other methods will actually stop working. Anyway, that's pretty much it. If you found the video useful, then give it a like and maybe subscribe to the channel, and yeah, see you next time.